Welcome, everyone. It is Cannabis News. I'm your host, Joe Klare. It seems a little low. My volume seems a little low. There we go. I think that's better. There we go. Anyway, welcome, everyone. To Cannabis News. I'm your host, Joe Klare. The show, as always, is presented by the Marijuana Times. MarijuanaTimes.org is where you can find us. Click the video tab there to find this show. A lot of great articles there as well. MarijuanaTimes.org. Today, we're talking about Ohio, Kentucky, and Michigan, going right up the I-75 corridor. Before we get to all of that, you see there, if you're watching the video version of the show, I was getting ready for the show today, and I thought, November 6th, that sounds like a very familiar date. And if some memory serves me correctly, that the reason for that is because on November 6, 2017, we did our first Cannabis News show. It was the Marijuana Times show then. Now it's Cannabis News, of course. So today, again, if memory serves me correctly, and hopefully it does, man, November 6th is the 2-year anniversary. Today's the 2-year anniversary of us doing this show. That is awesome. I really don't keep track of things in that way, as you all know. If you watch the show, I number each episode, and that's how I keep track of how many we've done. But 2 years is pretty awesome. We're almost 2,600 subscribers now on YouTube, Marijuana Times. You can also find us on the audio podcasts, on Apple Podcasts. Search Marijuana Times there. Thank you to everyone who shares and likes and comments on these videos and has helped us to get to 2 years of spreading the truth about cannabis with this show. It is awesome. Now, before we get to all those stories that I just previewed, the show, 2 years of the show, brought to you by NatureSide, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Thank you to NatureSide for 2 years. Grow safe and poison-free. Do yourself a favor. Don't put harmful chemicals on what you are growing. Use NatureSide, because NatureSide is awesome for so many reasons. Nature-side.com, a proud sponsor of Cannabis News now for 2 years. Thank you to NatureSide. This first story from yours truly at MarijuanaTimes.org. Formulating hemp rules in Ohio. A public comment period just ended in Ohio. They're trying to get their regulations together excuse me, for planting season next year in the state. I talked to Tim Johnson. He's one of the founders of the Ohio Cannabis and Hemp Chamber of Commerce. He identified a list of 10 concerns with proposed hemp regulations in the state. If you want to see the full list, of course, check out that story at MarijuanaTimes.org or click the link in the description of this video where you can find all stories that I talk about. Some of the things he's concerned about, licensing fees for cultivation and processing seem fair, but they involve many steps, compounding fees that could add up. I'm also worried about lot sizes starting at a minimum of a quarter acre and expanding to unlimited acreage. Worried about big growers coming in and taking over. Excuse me, man, I gotta clear my throat. Let me clear my throat. Also, some other things that Tim is worried about. Background checks involving felons for the last 10 years or so not being able to get into the nonviolent felons being able to get to the industry as well. Home or personal cultivation and processing are forbidden, adding the burden of government overreach, regulating the commodity, affecting the general public's participation. Other things, there's some leeway with the 0.3% when it comes to THC. The USDA has some sort of mathematical thing that they have that can allow you to go a little over the 0.3% THC. Ohio is going to end up very overregulated the way the USDA is going to overregulate the hemp industry as well. But Tim is optimistic. He said, quote, overall, the agricultural director in Ohio seems determined to move ahead with creating the safest, most productive, consumer-friendly, and participant-fair program in the country, with the tools afforded to do so in the Ohio Hemp Program. So a lot going on with hemp. As I said, the USDA, they're formulating their rules. They published their final interim rule. They're taking public comments on the USDA's website on hemp until the end of the year, if you want to go comment on that. This next story from WLKY.com. Kentucky lawmaker pre-files bill to legalize medical marijuana, meaning they're getting ready for next year. The medical marijuana bill, which will become House Bill 136 when the 2020 legislative session opens, was pre-filed by State Representative Jason Neems. Medical marijuana will be regulated under the bill by the Department for Alcoholic Beverage and Cannabis Control. The state-run system would issue licenses for cultivators, dispensaries, safety facilities, processors, practitioners, and patients. The bill would prohibit the smoking of medical marijuana for medical purposes, but would allow other forms of consumption such as edibles, oils, and pills. We've talked about the ban on smoking before. Reduces access. It's the way that most people still use marijuana, and it's useless as far as helping people with medical marijuana. In fact, it is a detriment to people getting access to medical marijuana, but it's something a lot of lawmakers and politicians feel they need to do to kind of compromise and get more votes for the bill. A 12% excise tax is proposed for cultivators and processors for selling to dispensaries. So Kentucky, one of several states next year that are looking towards getting medical marijuana through the state legislature. They've been working on it in Kentucky for several years now. They've gotten very close. They got it through committee in the Kentucky House last year, and they're hoping. Now there's a new governor. At least there seems to be a new governor. There's some dispute. Matt Bevin is disputing the results of last night's elections. But it looks like a Democratic governor is going to take over in Kentucky, who has been very open and hospitable, at least in public, for support for medical marijuana. So we'll see where that goes. As I said, Kentucky, one of several states next year that we're going to be looking at for passing medical marijuana through the legislature. I mentioned some election stuff. Some voting was going on yesterday. This is from Freep.com. Voters in 7 Michigan cities opt to keep marijuana businesses out. People in Michigan were one of the states. They were people in one of the states. They were one of the states where people were voting yesterday. That's what I'm trying to say. Holy crap. The Detroit Free Press characterized things in this manner. It was not a good night for marijuana businesses in Michigan on Tuesday, with voters in 3 out of 4 metro Detroit communities voting against proposals to allow legal weed into their towns. Voters in Kego Harbor and Walled Lake defeated proposals that would have allowed marijuana retail shops, while Allen Park defeated a proposal that included retail shops, small grow operations, and public consumption businesses. Lincoln Park was the exception, with voters approving a proposal to allow all cannabis business categories into their town, not to be confused with the band Lincoln Park. It is the town Lincoln Park in Michigan. 6 other communities across the state, 4 said no to marijuana. Proposals to allow marijuana businesses failed in Hudson and Mount Pleasant, while voters approved ballot issues to ban marijuana businesses in the Upper Peninsula's Marinasico Township and South Haven in southwest Michigan. Last year, voters statewide approved a ballot proposal that legalized marijuana for adult use by a margin of 56% to 44%. And while local leaders can decide to allow or ban cannabis businesses, they can't stop residents from possessing, using, or growing marijuana in their homes. Of course, this doesn't mean those communities who voted against marijuana on Tuesday won't have cannabis businesses. In some cases, such as Walled Lake, the city council had already given tentative approval for recreational marijuana businesses. The voters weren't presented with that proposal. All the communities can revisit their bans at any point in the future. So, a lot of stuff going on in Michigan so far. According to the Detroit Free Press, roughly 1,368 communities across the state have told the state that they are opting out of marijuana businesses, although some of those communities have said that they will reevaluate that decision after seeing how the state rules develop and how the marijuana market shakes out in Michigan. So there you go. Some rough election results, but not surprising. As we've seen since marijuana legalization started taking hold in various states, when given the ability to opt out or ban or put a moratorium on business coming into their towns, a lot of towns will do so just as a way to kind of keep things at the status quo while stuff is figured out and they figure out what they want to do and they talk to people and all other stuff. It's a wait-and-see attitude, but instead of saying, hey, we're going to let them in and see how it goes, we're going to ban it and wait and see that way and see what other localities decide to address the issue. We've seen this obviously in California and other states. It can take a long time for these communities to come around to the fact that they're not getting the economic activity and the tax revenue that other communities are getting. So it's a slow process. Hopefully it won't be as slow a process in Michigan as it has been in California and other places. We'll continue to cover that story and all the other stories we talk about and any news stories that come across Spike. We've been here 2 years doing cannabis news. Make sure you search the Marijuana Times on YouTube, subscribe, click the notification bell, Apple Podcasts as well. Search the Marijuana Times there. You can also find us at marijuanatimes.org, of course. And thank you to Natureside, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. They're awesome. You're awesome. We're all awesome. Here's to another 2 years and beyond of cannabis news. Thanks for watching and listening today, everybody. We'll see you next time right here on Cannabis News.